Hello and welcome to JGSTV.
Hi, this is my portfolio stuff for art for university. So it's looking at kind of different themes and stuff and development work for sketchbooks and things, and the ultimate end goal is for somebody to give me an offer, but so we've got sketchbook work, which is kind of a lot of pen work, but there's some character design stuff here, looking at various things, so that's fun. And then that kind of goes on to it. We've got Supreme there, type piece. So this then goes on to kind of the first main idea I've done for my portfolio, which is looking at the idea of commutes and kind of combining that with digital symbolism. So that's what gave rise to this idea, which is looking at kind of both combining mediums with train tickets on kind of pen-drawn characters, but also the kind of idea of sort of travel and commutes and things tied in with kind of digital emojis and things. And so that's, again, what this is kind of a development page looking more at that. So we've got different kind of colours and trying out different materials and stuff. A lot of ink work through all of this, so that's fun. So yeah, so that's looking at the kind of idea of a digital commute, and there's quite a lot of sketchbook stuff looking at, trying out different materials and things for that, and what stuff might look like and what I think looks cool and stuff. So that's fun. And then that then leads on to what was kind of done as my second sort of main portfolio theme, and that is the idea of what it feels like to suffer from migraines. So we've got kind of, again, sort of initial sketch plans and stuff, and looking at MRI scans and things, sort of brain scans and ink and stuff, and how this can then be portrayed. And as somebody that gets migraines, I think it's kind of interesting to look at how you convey something that's kind of not visually. So we've got that, and that's what led onto this, which is, kind of combining portraiture, which is portraits, obviously, drawing yourself, with sort of this idea of how you convey something like a migraine, which isn't really visual. So yeah, we've got that. This is looking at kind of different materials. We've got this, which is a lot of kind of ink splashes and stuff, really sweeping, looking at kind of the colours behind migraine and stuff, because you get the blood rushing to your head and things. And then this, which is kind of combining even in a bit of collage and stuff. And that's probably something I'd like to do more of. And so then everything kind of gets a bit more character based, and it's looking at the idea of the First World War, because obviously it was the centenary recently, which is the 100 years. And so yeah, this is looking at the idea of kind of First World War, but also sort of the biblical idea of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, because there was a lot, cavalry and stuff was kind of still used at the start of the war. Sort of phased it out. Horses and machine guns don't really work together particularly well, but at the start of the First World War they did that. So this is kind of looking at that part of time, because I mean it was a changing time anyway. And so that was kind of this idea of sort of doing the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So you've got war, pestilence, and famine and death, I think? Yeah, war, pestilence, famine and death. And so that's looking at kind of different ways that that can be conveyed, how you sort of combine First World War German cavalry with these biblical horsemen. So that is what, because I did the first two, so that is pestilence and war. We've got them there, cheerful. But yeah, and it's something I'd like to continue. Hold it up so the camera can actually see it. I'd like to kind of do something with famine and death as well, but I haven't got around to it as of yet because art is an endless grind. And then this then kind of goes on, and this is sort of looking at sort of actually passage of time and stuff, but kind of combining it in with some of the more character-based design stuff. So we've got kind of a focus on these. I think these actually cuttings from a book, maybe. But as well there's like newspaper clippings there and stuff, and that kind of tied in with this idea of clocks and mechanics and stuff, and this kind of mechanised time period, and a bit steampunky, but I mean the First World War was also this huge time of industrialisation, so that kind of ties in, and we've got character-based stuff. So yeah, so that kind of all flows through into this, and this is a ink city thing, which is again kind of looking at this sort of what if that idea of industrialisation in the First World War was taken to just the complete extreme. So we've got blooms and stuff here, and a kind of, again, slightly steampunky look in this sort of dystopian authoritarian city, which I think is quite a cool idea. It's quite interesting, and I'd like to do kind of more stuff based on that. So again, as you can see, a lot of ink stuff here, as with almost everything we've looked at so far. So yeah, that's kind of that, and then that with landscapes and stuff, so that leads on to these, which are two ink illustrations I did of, again, kind of looking at landscapes and stuff, but this is a bit more kind of sort of how to kind of convey like feeling and emotion and story and all that jazz through stuff visually, which is what a lot of art stuff, especially illustration stuff, kind of is. So yeah, so we've got that, and we've got a ship sailing under an arch here, and a kind of Scottish castle. So that's one, and that's kind of accompanied along with, in the sketchbook, there's got some drawings of horses and stuff. There's looking at the artist Piranesi, who drew a lot of prisons. Quite a disturbed guy, but his work is quite cool. Yeah, there's some more stuff there on the First World War, looking at different images and things, looking at other artists' work, which is what you have to do quite a lot of in sketchbook things. So people like Jacob Brzezowski there, who is a Polish illustrator, and he's done a bunch of stuff on kind of alternate history things, which is quite cool. So that then goes on to this, which is kind of more landscapey stuff, but also bringing it so it's kind of Constantinople, Byzantium, that sort of Turkey, Middle Eastern area, and that is kind of brought in as well with some kind of observational drawing of pillars and statues and stuff. So that's kind of all tied in theme, and then it leads on from the other landscape stuff. So that is then kind of in the middle. We've got monoprint life drawing. Monoprints when you kind of draw on the back of paper on top of ink and you then get a print. So that's from life drawing classes, which are interesting. And there's different material trials there and stuff as well, kind of looking at different ways of doing stuff. That one was done like trying to draw somebody while you're holding a very long stick with charcoal attached to the end. Complete nightmare. So this then is on, and this is kind of calling back to the steampunky ink city idea. This is looking kind of what a newspaper would look like, kind of what a front page of a newspaper would look like in that kind of world. So again, it's quite kind of dystopian and stuff, but it's looking at kind of being able to sort of convey what that society would be like just through, or what one aspect of that society would be like, just through what their newspapers would look like. So yeah, there's lots of references to conscription and stuff, which again kind of ties into a lot of the sort of history-based stuff, and especially around the First World War. So there are some sketchbook pages which are kind of dedicated to this. Not everything has loads of development to it. Some of it's just straight off the bat, much as everybody would love to think that there's loads of sketchbook work behind everything. There's kind of, sometimes there isn't. There is kind of not. And so yeah, this is kind of looking at the Constantinople-based stuff. So we've got the maps and things of the area and stuff, and that's also, you know, trying out kind of different coloured pencils and things, which I quite liked, and I was like, well, let's do something larger with that, hence that. So yeah, and that leads on, there's more, you know, various grim quotes about the First World War, only the dead have seen the end of war, cheerful times. As well, though, there's quite a lot in this of just kind of character-based sketches and stuff, and different things that kind of I'd like to continue in the future, but maybe haven't really led anywhere. But I mean, it's in the sketchbook, I can come back to it and make something bigger with it at some point. So this, yeah, then kind of coming on from the idea of sort of this totalitarian sort of society and the newspapers that they would have and stuff, is also kind of a character design page, but one that's looking at, as well as showing what characters in this world would look like, also sort of what their mantras, their ideology and stuff would be. So it's also looking at the idea of kind of doctrine and military doctrine and stuff for what these fighter pilots would have. So yeah, there's different, and but as well, not just having it all as pencil drawings and stuff, because, you know, that's how you show what the character looks like. But if you can show how the world this world works in other ways, it's quite interesting. So we've got the Ace of Spades card stuck in there quite awkwardly with a safety pin, and kind of stuff sewed on and things. But it all helps to build up this idea of what this world and what these characters should feel like. So then, if you're showing it to somebody, you know, and they're going to be doing something with your character design, if you can help convey what the world's going to be like, that helps quite a lot to get tone across and stuff, which is quite important. And so then there's kind of more sketchbook based stuff, looking at kind of this sort of some comic book based characters, kind of like sort of some stuff from Watchmen. Awful film, very good comic book. And yeah, so that kind of goes on into looking at the Doyle family, who were relations of Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes. And yeah, no, it's quite interesting. It's got different stuff about them. This was a task I had to do for one of the unis I was applying to. But yeah, so you had to go through and you had to look at their work and stuff. So they've got, was Richard Doyle, who did a cover for Punch and Judy, which is quite popular now, from what I think, like quite a disturbing puppet show and stuff, but he did the cover illustrations for it, so that's a fun bit of history for you. And yeah, this is looking at Charles Altman Doyle, who was in an asylum for most of his life, as most artists end up. And yeah, he did kind of a lot of stuff looking at illustrations. He did quite a lot of political illustrations, but also kind of stuff dealing with sort of what he thought about going and meeting death and things, which is not exactly cheerful, but it's quite interesting to get that look into his state of mind. So this is, again, kind of more character page stuff, but this is looking at kind of World War II era Soviet soldiers, but the idea that there's kind of sort of creatures of snow. Obviously, World War II, Germany had a disastrous campaign through Russia, a lot of snow, a lot of stuff went wrong, everybody got very cold. And this is kind of an extension of that idea of what it would be like to be fighting under those conditions, but also this idea that the Russians often just came out of nowhere. They knew the terrain, the Germans didn't. Sorry, I'm just doing a huge history lesson here. But this leads on to kind of looking at these, kind of developing these characters a bit more and what these
sort of antlered soldiers would look like, especially in those kind of wintry conditions in the Second World War. That's something, and as you can see through all of the character design stuff, there's lots of kind of notes and stuff, because not everything has to be conveyed visually. You know, sometimes it's easier to do that and it's good to get a feel of the character, but also a couple of words that explain something can be quite useful. So it's looking at kind of the different, you know, presumably the commander would have kind of quite large, sort of almost stag-like antlers, whereas the younger soldiers would have smaller ones. And it's an interesting mix of kind of quite sort of realistic stuff as well as very, very kind of fantasy. And so that's kind of an end to the character-based stuff. In the sketchbook, this then goes on to some kind of observational drawing of the woods and stuff around the house, and the dog there, he got a mention in this, because this was again for a task that one of the unis I was applying to had me do, where you kind of produce art based on an area. So I chose the woods that are relatively close to where I live. There's also some photography there, which is also kind of in the bracket of a lot of art stuff. I've just done quite little of it. But yeah, there's different kind of looking at the skyline and stuff there, how it pans around, and then kind of taking those images and trying them with different materials. So there's the kind of trees and stuff there, and again sort of looking at kind of the silhouettes and playing around with ink and other materials, pencils and stuff, and as well as collage and stuff. So this was kind of taking some of the colours from the photos, kind of the vague sort of sunset that was going on, but really, really amping them up so that they're very, very vibrant and bright, and you've got these real black outlines as well as like this real bright orange. And that works quite well. In fact, I think that looks slightly Wild Western, which then leads us on to, because one of the things that I was also looking at and I was kind of doing as a side bit to a lot of the character-based stuff, was looking at the film titles of Ignio Lardini, who did a lot of the kind of real traditional spaghetti western titles. So for a lot of the Clint Eastwood films and stuff, he did a lot of them. And that's what led on to looking at kind of these and sort of the kind of, again, sort of conveying theme and idea and sort of place and things through, you know, art and visual and stuff. So for this is kind of the Wild West, also inspired by the fact that Red Dead Redemption 2 came out very recently. But yeah, so this is looking at the West and kind of charcoal stuff and then layering that over with ink. And that gives you quite a kind of interesting look, and it also mimics a lot of that kind of Wild West and splash screen stuff. And then below that there is the one of the ship, and that was looking at song lyrics by an artist called Nomi, and he did a song called Dead Man Walking. And some of the lyrics there, I think, paint quite a good picture visually, and so that was the idea. There's a lot of stuff about sailing and kind of oceans and stuff in it, and so that was what then inspired this idea of kind of ships sailing sort of off into the sunset and kind of finality and stuff. So yeah, so that is all of the main pieces, portfolio stuff, but there's still, you know, there's things in the sketchbook, and there's a lot of stuff that I'd kind of like to come back to in the future and develop a bit more. So there's some stuff there looking, again, there's an artist called Artem Solop, who does a lot of kind of digital based stuff, but a lot of his stuff is quite vibrant and it's got quite a kind of pop art look to it, so that was kind of looking at that, using highlighter and stuff for that. There's then a series of things based on the photography of Don McCulless, who was a war photographer. He's done a lot of stuff all over the world, but I think some of his most interesting stuff is the stuff he did in the Vietnam conflict. So that's kind of sketch pages looking at this and looking at how to convey that. There's also some references to films and stuff, Vietnam era films, very popular and quite iconic. So that's kind of looking at all of this and sort of, yeah, it's a very, the 60s in general was quite an iconic time. So it's looking at bringing in aspects of that and stuff into art and kind of looking back at it and stuff. And then yeah, there's kind of more character-based stuff, so we've got some kind of fantasy elves there. Something I'd like to do more of, maybe kind of a comic book style thing, based on, there's a poem called Paradise Lost about how Satan is a fallen angel rather than being a demon. But that's something I think is quite interesting, and I'd like to do something on that as kind of
demons as sort of these quite suave people. And yeah, and there's different ideas and stuff that I'd like to bring forward. We've got some Viking sketches there, which is looking at, you know, arrows and things and sort of that history, but it's something I might not come back to. But equally, in the future I might be like, yeah, that's something I'd like to develop more, especially some of the character-based stuff. And then, yeah, there's kind of looking at sort of comic book stuff again. Comics is something I'm quite interested in. I think it would be quite cool to do some stuff based on that myself, because I've done a lot of character design stuff, but I think comic stuff could be quite interesting. So that's kind of looking at an idea of sort of this kind of supernatural court jury and things. And then, yeah, and then there's kind of going back a bit almost to the pop arty kind of digital stuff there, with very much kind of highlighter and ink and things.
Thanks for watching. Follow our show on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.